The year was 1954, and America was racing into a new era of confidence, prosperity, and cultural transformation. The highways were widening, the suburbs were expanding, and families were buying cars not just as a means of transportation, but as badges of identity. In the middle of this landscape, the Plymouth Belvedere emerged as something different from the grandiose machines that the wealthy preferred. It was not massive or extravagant, it did not try to be a rolling monument of chrome or a luxurious status symbol. Instead, it became something far more meaningful to millions of everyday Americans, a car that understood them. The Plymouth Belvedere of 1954 earned its place not through loud marketing campaigns or elite circles of influence, but through quiet loyalty. It captured the hearts of working-class families, young couples, veterans returning from war, factory workers, and people who wanted something that represented them rather than the world they were excluded from. It was a car built for the real streets of America, not the lavish avenues of the wealthy. When it appeared, the social climate was already divided. The elite of the time favored enormous vehicles, overloaded with chrome, tail fins, and opulent interiors, cars that served more as rolling palaces than practical machines. They wanted status, spectacle, and designs that shouted superiority. But the common people wanted something else entirely. They needed reliability, affordability, and a car that could survive real everyday use. Many of them lived far from the glamour projected in advertisements, neighborhoods filled with dust, mud, gravel roads, fields of work, factory parking lots, and long daily commutes. Their reality demanded a machine that could endure more than admiration. They needed something they could trust. The 1954 Belvedere became that machine. It introduced a level of reliability and simplicity that resonated deeply with these families. The legendary flathead 6-engine, though modest, was incredibly durable and easy to fix. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept running even when neglected, mistreated, or pushed beyond what anyone expected. Mechanics loved it because it rarely arrived in the shop with serious issues. Farmers loved it because it could handle rough terrain without falling apart. And young drivers loved it because it was inexpensive to maintain and surprisingly fun to drive. It was, in many ways, the perfect expression of American practicality at its peak. Yet for the elite, this practicality was precisely what they despised. They mocked its simplicity. They ridiculed its lack of excessive chrome or flamboyant styling. To them, the Belvedere represented the world they did not want to belong to, the world of workers, sweat, dust, and real life. For this small but influential segment of society, a car like the Belvedere was beneath them. They wanted something flashier, more expensive, something that would make them stand out. But irony has always been a silent force in automotive history, because often the most authentic machines end up earning a deeper legacy than the luxury toys of the privileged few. The Belvedere, in spite of the disdain of the wealthier classes, became a symbol of the average American dream. Unlike many of the heavy, glamorous models of the time, it offered a reasonable price that allowed thousands of families to own a new car for the first time in their lives. That kind of accomplishment had emotional weight. It meant independence, dignity, and pride. Many Americans could finally go on Sunday drives, take road trips, and experience life beyond their neighborhoods because the Belvedere made it possible. It wasn't just transportation, it was escape, opportunity, and freedom. It carried kids to school, husbands to work, wives to the market, and families across the country. It contributed to the rhythm of daily life in a way that many luxury cars never could. Its styling, though far from extravagant, possessed a quiet charm. The lines were clean and balanced, the proportions were solid, and the car felt approachable. It didn't try to intimidate or impress, it simply existed with honesty. And that honesty became a kind of beauty in itself. Many people appreciated that the Belvedere didn't pretend to be something it wasn't. It didn't claim superiority. It didn't shout for attention. It was a car that respected your intelligence and your budget. That respect, subtle as it was, built loyalty that no amount of luxury could buy. Driving one was another revelation for many people. It wasn't fast, but it offered a smoothness and comfort that stood out among cars in its class. Plymouth engineers had spent years perfecting ride quality, sound insulation, and handling stability. They wanted ordinary Americans to feel that they were driving something dependable and refined, even without luxury appointments. As a result, the Belvedere became known for its pleasant, predictable behavior on the road. On highways, it felt stable. On rough rural roads, it absorbed impacts with surprising composure. It had a kind of unpretentious elegance in motion that made drivers feel safe and confident. Many owners described it as a family member rather than a machine. The elite, meanwhile, continued to scoff at what they considered a basic car. But their criticism inadvertently amplified the Belvedere's appeal. The more they mocked it, the more ordinary families embraced it as their own symbol, a car that belonged to them, not to the rich. Because of this, the Belvedere became part of a cultural division. It represented authenticity in a world increasingly obsessed with status. It was the car of the Real America, the America that worked every day, paid bills, raised children, and built the country from the ground up. That quiet dignity made the Belvedere more than just a mode of transportation. It made it a statement. The 1954 Belvedere also arrived at a time when America was still recovering from war, and people valued practicality more than excess. Many veterans admired the car for its toughness, its mechanical simplicity, and its refusal to be delicate. They saw in it the same qualities they respected in themselves. The Belvedere became the chosen vehicle of countless veterans who found comfort in its straightforward engineering. It didn't break easily, and when it did, it could be repaired anywhere with basic tools. That reliability turned it into a trusted companion during a decade when rural areas often lacked access to mechanics or specialized parts. There was another reason the wealthy disliked the Belvedere: its success threatened their ideology. Cars, to them, were not about transportation but about hierarchy. They believed that only people with money deserved a refined driving experience. The Belvedere proved otherwise. It demonstrated that comfort, style, and reliability could be delivered to the masses without a premium price tag. That idea was revolutionary, and it frightened those who wanted to keep luxury exclusive. They feared that if ordinary people could own a comfortable, well-engineered car, the distinction between classes would begin to blur. And in many ways, that is exactly what happened. Families who bought a Belvedere often spoke of the pride they felt in owning something new. For many, it was the first new car they had ever purchased. That emotional connection cannot be underestimated. A new car in the 1950s was a milestone. It symbolized stability, growth, and progress. It gave people a sense of accomplishment. The Belvedere became part of their family history, appearing in photo albums, memories, road trips, and stories passed down through generations. Some of these cars remain in families today, lovingly preserved because of the powerful sentimental value they hold. Meanwhile, the elite preferred to dismiss the Belvedere as ordinary, plain, or too simple. But what they perceived as deficiencies were exactly what made the car exceptional. It didn't pretend. It didn't try to seduce with exaggerated curves or oversized chrome. It did not need to compensate for anything. It existed with purpose, and that purpose was to serve the everyday American with honesty and reliability. In a world full of automotive vanity, this authenticity was refreshing. The Belvedere also excelled in durability tests. Owners frequently pushed these cars through harsh winters, muddy farm roads, and long daily commutes without major issues. Even when neglected, the engines refused to die. The chassis held up against abuse. The body panels resisted rust better than many competitors. Stories circulated of Belvederes surviving accidents that would have destroyed flimsier cars. It gained a reputation for being unbreakable, and that reputation spread organically, not through advertisements, but through real-life use. At the same time, it carried a certain cultural symbolism. It represented blue-collar pride, modesty, and the belief that value matters more than extravagance. In a country that celebrated wealth and achievement, the Belvedere represented the quiet achievements of millions of families who worked hard, saved, sacrificed, and hoped for a better future. It represented an America that believed in fairness and opportunity, an America that valued character over wealth. There was another layer to its story. The Belvedere gave ordinary people a sense of belonging during a time when society was dividing itself into classes through consumption. Luxury car owners often used their vehicles to distinguish themselves, but Belvedere owners used theirs to connect with one another. They waved when they passed each other on the road. They shared maintenance tips. They helped each other at local garages. The Belvedere created a sense of community that transcended social divides. It was more than a car, it was a link between people who understood each other's struggles and triumphs. Young couples loved it for a different reason. It was the perfect car to start a life with. Affordable, reliable, comfortable enough for long drives, and easy to maintain on a modest budget. Many couples went on their honeymoon in a Belvedere. Many took their first road trip in one. Many brought their first child home from the hospital in its back seat. A car doesn't earn that kind of role in people's lives unless it offers something truly special. And yet, despite all this love, the elite persisted in rejecting it. They saw the Belvedere as a threat to their automotive identity. They believed that only they should enjoy the best engineering and comfort, and they disliked any car that offered these qualities to the masses. Their rejection was never rooted in the car's actual performance or quality, it was rooted in pride. They needed to maintain the illusion that expensive meant superior, even when it wasn't true. The Belvedere shattered that illusion. As the years passed, the car became a symbol of a cultural divide that went beyond automobiles. It represented the ongoing tension between simplicity and extravagance, humility and vanity, authenticity and superficiality. In that sense, the 1954 Plymouth Belvedere became much more than a mid-range sedan. It became a reflection of society and the values people chose to embrace. As the 1950s advanced, the Plymouth Belvedere of 1954 continued to establish itself as a quiet icon for millions who simply wanted a trustworthy companion for their lives. Its affordability meant that people from nearly every background could consider owning one, and its low maintenance cost kept it aligned with the realities of families who lived paycheck to paycheck. For these people, owning a Belvedere wasn't just a purchase, it was a step forward, a sign that they were participating in the growing American dream. It did not rely on extravagance or status to win loyalty, only honesty. That honesty became the Belvedere's strongest currency, and year after year it earned more than the elite ever expected. Families would gather around their Belvedere in old photographs, proud to show that they owned something new and reliable. For them, the car represented stability. It meant they could take long drives to visit relatives, drive across state lines without fear of breakdowns, and give their children new experiences. Many children of the 1950s still recall the feel of the Belvedere's seats, the hum of its engine, the smell of its interior, and the way it felt during family trips. For them, the car was a moving part of childhood. While luxury cars sat in gated garages, admired by a select few, the Belvedere lived on the road, actively creating memories. The way it shaped the lives of ordinary families only deepened the dislike from wealthier circles. To them, the Belvedere embodied the rise of middle-class mobility, something that threatened their sense of exclusivity. They didn't want a world where everyday people enjoyed similar levels of comfort and confidence on the road. In their eyes, luxury was a language of social separation, and the Belvedere's widespread success blurred the lines. The elite wanted towering tail fins, excessive chrome, and exotic engines. The Belvedere rejected these ideals by proving that a well-designed, practical car could deliver satisfaction without pretense. And that truth unsettled them. Mechanically, the Belvedere wasn't meant to impress with horsepower figures, it was meant to endure. Its flathead 6 was nearly impossible to kill, and its simple layout made it accessible to amateur mechanics. In the 1950s, many Americans fixed their own cars in garages, barns, or driveways. The Belvedere encouraged this culture by being so straightforward that owners felt empowered instead of intimidated. Kids learned how engines worked by watching their fathers work on the Belvedere. Teenagers practiced their first oil changes and tune-ups on its engine bay. The car became a teacher as much as a tool. Wealthier car owners, insulated by expensive dealership service networks, never understood this connection between a family and a machine that welcomed their hands rather than rejecting them. The Belvedere also offered durability in ways that richer buyers never needed. It could handle gravel roads, dirt tracks, snowy winters, and rural terrain. It wasn't a fragile ornament. It was a survivor, built to accompany farmers to fields, workers to factories, mothers to markets, and families on cross-country adventures. That resilience made it one of the most dependable vehicles of the early 1950s. Countless Belvederes reached well over 100,000 miles, an impressive milestone for that era, without major issues. The car proved, year after year, that value wasn't determined by glamour or price, but by reliability and endurance. Social divisions surrounding the Belvedere's image continued to intensify because it became an extension of cultural identity. For the common people, the car represented honesty, effort, and practicality. For the wealthy, it represented the opposite of what they wanted the world to see in them. Their distaste for the Belvedere wasn't about engineering or design, but about perception. They feared its popularity would dilute the symbolic power of their extravagant cars. A world where ordinary people drove comfortable, dependable vehicles was a world where the wealthy lost one of their quiet tools of distinction. The Belvedere exposed this insecurity in ways the elite never admitted openly. Yet the Belvedere never needed validation from high society. Its validation came from the road itself. Every mile driven by families, every grocery trip, every long journey, every moment spent teaching a child to drive, it all fed into a legacy far more meaningful than the polished existence of luxury cars. Some cars are built to impress people. Others are built to serve people. The Belvedere belonged firmly to the second category, and its cultural impact reflects that truth. It also played a significant role in shaping the identity of Plymouth as a brand. In the 1950s, Plymouth was positioning itself as the car for the people, reliable, affordable, and trustworthy. The Belvedere helped turn that vision into reality. While competitors tried to stun consumers with sweeping chrome and futuristic features, Plymouth remained grounded. It delivered cars that offered substance over spectacle. Because of this, the company forged a loyal customer base that lasted for decades. Many families who bought a Belvedere stayed with Plymouth or Chrysler products for the rest of their lives. That kind of brand loyalty is rare and valuable, and it was born from the sincerity that defined the 1954 model. The Belvedere also reflected something deeper about American culture in the post-war era. People were tired of austerity, but they didn't want exaggerated luxury either. They wanted comfort without pretension. They wanted reliability without excessive price. They wanted something familiar, dependable, and aligned with their values. The Belvedere captured this perfectly. Its design was modest, but its proportions were attractive. Its interior wasn't luxurious, but it was comfortable enough for long drives. It didn't try to stand out, it tried to fit in. And that humility became one of its greatest strengths. Perhaps one of the most interesting aspects of its legacy is how it became a symbol not just of the common man, but of fairness. Cars in the early 1950s often forced buyers into one of two categories, luxury or utility. The Belvedere ignored that division and created a third category, practical comfort. It offered families something that felt complete, without forcing them to overpay or sacrifice quality. For many Americans, this democratization of comfort was empowering. It made them feel valued as consumers, not overlooked in favor of wealthier buyers. Over time, the Belvedere carved its place in automotive history not because it was revolutionary, but because it was authentic. Its long-term strength came from the emotional bonds it created, the people it served, and the simplicity with which it fulfilled its purpose. Decades later, enthusiasts still speak fondly of the 1954 model. They remember its durability, its character, and the way it represented a time when cars were built to last rather than to compete in status wars. Today, restored Belvederes evoke nostalgia for an era when life was simpler, families were closer, and vehicles were companions rather than disposable machines. The elite who once scoffed at the Belvedere eventually moved on to other symbols of wealth, but their disdain only strengthened the car's reputation among regular Americans. What the wealthy considered flaws became badges of honor for those who loved the car. The Belvedere did not need approval from the upper class. It was a car built for the majority, and it wore that role proudly. The car's cultural significance extended beyond the 1950s. It became part of stories passed down through generations. People remembered learning to drive in one, taking their first date in one, traveling on vacations with one, or even pushing one down a dirt road with friends laughing behind them. These memories rooted the Belvedere deeply into American family histories. While luxury cars from the same era were often kept polished and hidden away, the Belvedere lived its life fully in the open, working, carrying, transporting, and creating moments. It also played a role in shaping the identity of neighborhoods and communities. In working-class towns across America, Belvederes lined the streets. They filled the parking lots of diners, grocery stores, high schools, and factories. They were present in the daily choreography of American life. They blended into the background while simultaneously becoming essential to it. This understated presence reflected the quiet dignity of the people who owned them. Decades later, collectors began to acknowledge the 1954 Belvedere as a historically important model, not because it introduced radical features, but because it represented a cultural truth. It showed what millions of Americans valued and needed at the time. It stood as a reminder that greatness in automotive history is not always achieved by spectacle, but often by sincerity. Today, restored examples are admired for their charm, their subtle beauty, and the nostalgia they inspire. Many collectors who once ignored such cars now chase them because they understand the story behind them. The car also reveals something timeless about human behavior. People appreciate authenticity. They respect machines that do not pretend to be something they are not. They value reliability and humility. These qualities transcend generations, and that is why the Belvedere still resonates today. It was not built to dominate with power or luxury. It was built to serve. And in doing so, it became unforgettable. Even in media and pop culture, the Belvedere has made appearances that reflect its reputation. It often shows up in films and documentaries portraying working-class families, small towns, and authentic American life. Directors choose it not for glamour, but because it visually communicates humility and sincerity. Its presence instantly evokes the intimacy of mid-century America. It is a car that tells a story without speaking. The class conflict surrounding its reputation has also become a curious point of reflection. The same features that led the elite to reject the Belvedere, its simplicity, modesty, and affordability, are now what make it endearing. In an age dominated by excess, digital complexity, and disposable engineering, the Belvedere's honest approach feels refreshing. It reminds people of a time when products were designed to last, prices were fair, and life moved at a gentler pace. It reminds people of the value of straightforward engineering and the charm of cars that didn't try to impress, only to serve. Today, when enthusiasts gather at classic car shows, the Belvedere often draws people who want to share their personal stories. Many of them grew up riding in one. Some remember their parents saving for years to buy it new. Some remember long road trips, breakdowns that turned into adventures, or quiet drives during simpler moments. These memories create an emotional connection that no luxury car could ever replicate. The irony remains that although the wealthy once despised it, time has treated the Belvedere far kinder than many luxury cars from the same period. While some extravagant vehicles became outdated curiosities, the Belvedere became a timeless symbol of authenticity. It aged with grace because it was never built on pretense. It was built on purpose, integrity, and real-world value. In the end, the 1954 Plymouth Belvedere carved its own legacy, not in the pages of elite magazines or glamorous advertisements, but in the lives of ordinary people who embraced it wholeheartedly. The elite may have hated it, but their disdain only highlighted the car's true meaning. It wasn't built for them. It was built for everyone else. It represented a world that valued hard work, humility, and genuine connection. It represented a form of equality that frightened those who depended on exclusivity. To this day, the Belvedere remains a symbol of that quiet rebellion. A reminder that greatness doesn't always roar, it often hums quietly down the road, carrying families, hopes, memories, and stories across decades. The common people loved it because it belonged to them, and the elite hated it because it didn't belong to them. That simple truth is what cemented its place in history.